Hey guys, it's the Grenadier Gamer, and we're back taking a look at Enlisted. Unfortunately, still no word on the winter Christmas update, whatever you want to call it, event, but we are looking at a new sit rep. So they're planning to give us a look at early insights on the future of the game, couple new updates, couple fillers, so let's hop in and take a look. So first, they go on to talk about the roadmap from the beginning of 2024 that they set out, and they claim that they have completed 25 of the promised features that they said they were going to add, and only 3 remain. Not exactly true, so the free release on Steam, that happened, but it took multiple attempts to get right. Improvement on account linking systems, that's been remedied. In-game tutorial for the UI, that's okay, I guess. Better description for game mechanics. So for new players, I'd say like describing how perks and whatnot works just fine, but there's still a lot of hidden stats in the game, like how many tank shells a tank gets, how many of a certain shell it gets. Penetration values are still not shown, which makes no sense because they could probably just be ported directly over from War Thunder. So I'm not really sure why we don't have that yet. Engineer built AT guns for high BR. Sure, they exist, but several of them are just copy and pasted. Like the Soviets don't have their own high BR AT gun when they absolutely should. They had plenty of anti-tank guns that could be used. Zis 3, Zis 2. New soldier classes, sure, those have been added. Converting excess research points into silver, sure. Silver rewards for battle hero medals, yes, that has been implemented. Revised earnings in conquest mode, okay. Veteran boxes, so loot boxes with old event rewards for silver, yep. Changes to anti-personnel mines, I think that kind of sucks, but yes. Still haven't gotten that new front line that they promised. New battlefields, sure, they've added a couple new maps. Combat events, yeah, I guess. Postponing booster activation, okay. Preferred map system, doesn't really work. Half the time I get maps I don't want. 90% of the time recently I just get the new Caves Tunisia map. Reworking rules for groups, okay. Penalties for deserters, yeah. Not really penalizing old players, just new players when half their team leaves because their preferred maps are not being popped up. Silver bonus for joining any team, sure, but I don't think anybody really uses that. Ability to invite friends to ongoing battles, not yet. Keyboard and mouse support, not yet. Aim assist, okay. Change soldier voices, yes. Customization prices. Improvements for the Rider class, yes, but still nobody takes Rider classes. It's just a waste of a squad slot. So, they're still saying they're fully committed to the last roadmap, but they are not going to release a new roadmap because of what happened with the last roadmap. They still haven't delivered on everything they promised at the beginning of 2024, so they don't want a rerun of that disaster. So essentially, they have a roadmap that they're not sharing with us, but they're going to give us sneak peeks as stuff gets developed. That way they could say, oh, look at this stuff that we are adding to the game in this update, and we won't know, oh, we actually planned to add 5 new features in this update, but we only finished 3 in time. They're just going to share the 3 that they did finish, so we don't know about the other 2 that got postponed. So, smart on their part, but a little disingenuous. Let's see. So, A lot of people want keyboard and mouse support for console players. That probably won't be released until 2026. What else do we have here? Let's talk about the new front line. So they have a new front line, which is something more than a new battlefield. So I'm assuming this is going to be a new quote-unquote campaign, or like a new front of the war. So they show us this picture and tease us, I wonder what it could be. Now, most people are saying that this is going to be Manchuria, and I could see Manchuria because Manchuria has rocky, rough terrain, mountains, they have conifer trees and whatnot. But if you take a closer look, and I don't know, this could just be me overanalyzing the picture, but to me it looks like Scandinavia, specifically maybe Finland and Karelia, because there's a lot of tall coniferous pine trees. They have the rocky terrains and cliffs. It looks like a cold weather climate. There's like sparse grass. It's not very lush. It has rough ground. It's definitely not in the Mediterranean or North Africa, so that rules out Italy or any part of North Africa, Sicily, none of that. So I'm thinking we might be getting either the Winter War between Finland and the Soviets, which that would be exciting, or maybe the Continuation War between the Soviets and the Finnish, or perhaps they could be doing like a 1940 invasion of Norway for the Germans to give Germany another battleground against the Western Allies. I'm not sure. I'm leaning towards Finland more than Manchuria, just because while Manchuria has coniferous forests in the northern mountains bordering the Russia-Korean area, they also have different types of trees, and I'm not really seeing anything other than pines. So there's not much Asian vegetation, and there's also not a lot of like dry grass and brush, or like scrub typed vegetation that's typical of East Asia. Also, the rocks and soil looks much more European to me because it has more of a northern look to it, whereas like the Manchurian area often has a darker, like volcanic stone soil look to it. So I'm thinking this might be Finland, although it's absolutely possible that this is Manchuria. That's what most people are speculating. Now, if it is Manchuria, that's good because it gives the Soviets another front, and it lessens the burden of the matchmaker. So if you're playing as Japan, you could get battles against the Soviets, or you could get battles against the Western Allies. If you're the Soviets, instead of always facing the Germans, you could potentially get battles against Japan, which would be nice. That's part of the speculation as to why we got that summer event of the Soviets versus the Japanese. Now, if this is indeed Scandinavia, or specifically the Finnish Winter War or the Continuation War, which I'm going to lean towards Continuation War because it doesn't look very wintry here. It looks more like fall. That means we could be getting a Finnish tech tree, something like that, which might put a burden on the matchmaker. But what we could do, like I've said before, we could have an Axis miners tech tree. You could have Hungary, you could have Finland, you could have Romania, all these Axis minor powers, and then they could be lumped in, and you could have them face the Russians in Stalingrad. You could have them face the Russians in this new front. You could have them at Moscow, depending on the Axis minor. It's not going to be the most historically accurate, but it could have the potential to work. Moving on from that, we got an announcement about decals. So Enlisted's been working with their friends over at War Thunder, and they have a new set of historical decals that are going to be ported over to Enlisted. They're basically just copy and pasted right from War Thunder. They're going to be focused on historical accuracy to boost immersion from each faction. And the way they're planning on giving them to us is through, which is subject to change, but the plan is to create longer term contracts for specific nations that players can complete across a number of battles to earn them. Then they also want us to feel like our opinions matter, so they throw us a hypothetical bone and ask for our opinion. Should the decals remain faction locked, or should we allow quote unquote captured vehicles wearing enemy markings, like a Soviet tank wearing a German Balkan cloaks on the turret, because there's no risk of friendly fire, so it's technically possible. They want to ask us our opinion. Obviously, any sane player who actually cares about any kind of historical accuracy, which is what they're pushing with these decals, is boost of historical immersion, would absolutely say no, because captured vehicles were very scarce even when they were fielded. And it's just going to be really immersion breaking if we just see a bunch of Soviet T-34s wearing German crosses or what have you. So please go vote on that post on the forum and vote no. We do not want this asinine nonsense. I think when I looked last, about 72% of the population said no, so we're doing well there. That shouldn't really be an issue. The next thing Darkflow wants to discuss is that we have sweeping changes to ensure objective point is every player's focus. So there's several different changes. One of them, the biggest one that the player base has been asking for since the destruction game mode was added to the game, is give us experience and points for mining or defusing the bomb sites on the objectives. It is no easy feat to go into the bomb area, clear out the room, arm the bomb for 25 seconds, 30 seconds, and then defend it all the way until completion, or clear out the room of enemies while the clock is ticking, and then defuse the bomb before you get shot at. So they're finally going to add that bonus, which is something that the player base has been asking for a really long time. So it's a long time coming. That should absolutely have already been added to the game. Finally, it's coming. Then they're also going to add more statistics to the game, so we can see more interesting stats. I'm not going to read all of these, but lots of interesting stats that you could take a look at. For capturing objectives, it's also going to be more incentivized. You're going to get 3 times the amount of points for capturing a point, and they're going to be doubling the bonus for killing while either attacking or defending on an objective. Then they're also going to add rating indicators to players, which will measure all of these things listed here. So it's going to give you a synthetic skill rating. Essentially, this is a player skill rating system prototype, and they're advertising it as just for player knowledge and bragging rights. But essentially, this is a prototype for skill-based matchmaking, which skill-based matchmaking is not feasible in Enlisted. If it was, we wouldn't have had to have gotten rid of the campaign-based setup, which was putting strain on the matchmaker. If we were going to have skill-based matchmaking, we would need a much larger player base count. We're already having trouble getting matches full of players without bots, so there's no way you can be that picky and match players that only have a 190 skill-based rating with each other without putting in higher skilled players without insanely long queue times. But this proposed skill rating will be measured over these stats, and then they say that it'll be a system from 0 to 1000, but they also say that the minimum rating value would be 190 and the maximum is currently 900. So if the max is 900 and the minimum is 190, then how are you getting 0 and 1000? That just doesn't make much sense. But I don't think this is going to last very long. This is not going to be a permanent game mechanic that actually leads to anything. I don't think skill-based matchmaking is feasible in Enlisted. Next, we're making premium squads great again. So a decent buff is coming to premium squads. So for the longest time, older premium squads have suffered. So like hypothetically, they're giving us the Sniper Gewehr 41 premium squad. So originally they had -2 nerf to their red perk tree, +14 to their yellow, and -6 to their green. So what they're saying is after this update, the negative base perk modifiers are going to they're going to get rid of them, so it's just going to be 0. So instead of -2 red perk points, they'll just have 0. They'll have normal. So essentially, it's getting rid of the nerfs and keeping the buff. So instead, it'll be 0 to red, 14 to yellow, and 0 to green. So essentially, they're only getting a buff to weapon handling by 14. The other two are being left alone. So that's good. It'll make older premium squads more useful. They should get some more use where they did not before. They start talking about the new forum designs. Doesn't really matter that much. I'm going to go ahead and skip most of that. And then talking about the Battle Pass. So Enlisted prides itself on historical authenticity. I'm not so sure about that one. Each year it gets tougher and tougher because the game gets more complete. Well, if you add more campaigns and fronts of the war, it would be easier. But I digress. So instead of talking about the next 3 battle passes, they're just talking about the current one. I think this falls in the same vein of not releasing a roadmap because they don't want to disappoint people by lagging behind and not doing what they said they were going to do. So they're just going to go one by one. So speaking of, the last Battle Pass season in December for 2025 is going to give us a new machine gun for Japan. That should be interesting. Not really sure what it would be, but looking forward to see what that might be. Then they go on and talk about how the developers play this game all the time, blah, 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 has no effect on us. We don't really care. Just update the game and make good events. Then, big updates to semi-autos and MGs. So, semi-autos have a very high shot dispersion rate on their first shot because the cone of dispersion shrinks slower during and after the aim down sight animation, which makes your initial shot less accurate if fired very quickly. So they're fixing that. So dust off your M1 Garand, it's back in fighting form. So semi-autos are getting a buff, that's good. And then machine guns are also getting an upgrade because for too long you relied on your bipods to properly counteract the heavy recoil. After this new update, going prone is going to reduce recoil by 2.5 more times than before. And bipods are still going to remain useful, giving an even larger recoil control bonus. But simply hitting the dirt will give you a much better and noticeable recoil advantage. So W for semi-autos and MGs. They're nerfing the Meteor, the USA Jet. They're getting rid of its 2 1,000-pound bombs and giving it 2 500-pound bombs. Then they're adding more customization to soldier uniforms and equipment. That's nice. We're going to get new winter uniforms for the British and the Italian infantry squads. That's cool. As I always say, Italy should get its own tech tree. Italy can still fight in the same fronts, like Stalingrad, along with the Germans. And then if you add Sicily and an Italian front, it'll give even more ease to the matchmaker to find matches with Germany and Italy fighting together against either the Soviets in Stalingrad or against the Western Allies in Sicily, North Africa, and Italy proper. But they probably won't listen to me, so whatever. Also, they're going to change camouflage for tanks, so you'll no longer see winter tank camos in Tunisia or stuff like this, which will be nice, a little more immersive, nice little touch. So, when our developers aren't busy playing Enlisted, they're working on the next major update, set to go live this December as the final big patch of 2025. So we will probably, later this week and in the coming weeks, get little tidbits of information about this big update more and more as it comes quicker. And then once it finally drops, we will also probably get our winter/Christmas event. So, that seems to be everything. Potential for promising update. New content, decals, very interesting. Let's see if they find a way to mess it up, or if Enlisted gets a W to close out 2025 and a promising start to 2026. If you like this kind of content, please drop a like and subscribe for more Enlisted content. That's all for now. Stay sharp out there. I'll see you on the battlefield. Catch you next time.